Hello, welcome to Doors to Hope and Healing, an inside look at foster care and adoption needs in Connecticut. My name is Jacqueline Ford. It is my hope that each week I can help to dispel those myths and misconceptions that often act as barriers to finding homes for Connecticut children. Joining us in our studio today is Deb Candelora, a licensed liaison from the Connecticut Alliance of Foster and Adoptive Families, and Sarah DeMerchant, a licensed foster mom. Thank you both so much for joining me today. In our last segment, we talked all about foster care and adoption and what that means and how to get started if someone's interested in being a licensed provider. So having you two on today will be extremely helpful for our viewers. Sarah, let's start with you. What made you first interested in becoming a foster parent?
I had received an email from Kevin Lembo. I'm a state employee, and I had received an email in November of 2015 talking about asking people if they were interested in coming out and becoming a foster parent or interested in adoption. So I called the Kid Hero line because I had gone to the Heart Gallery and saw a young man who was probably about 10 or 11 years old, and his story just tugged at my heartstrings. So when I called and I inquired about him, unfortunately, for me, he was not available to come for adoption. He was being placed that day in a forever home with his biological sister. So although I was very sad about that, I was happy for him. I then inquired about possibly could you sponsor a child through the Thanksgiving time or Christmas time, and they said no, but would I be interested in learning a little bit more about foster care? So they asked if I would be willing to go to an open house, and I said I was, but I was anxious to get more information about that. And at that time, there wasn't an open house that had been scheduled. So thankfully, they got me in touch with you, and you came out into the community, met with my husband and I, and which we thought was going to be about a half an hour discussion, and we ended up talking for almost 3 hours. And we got right on board and proceeded to get involved with the 13-week training, which we did. We started our training in March of 2016, and we were licensed at the end of July. And one of the things they say in training is the ink will not be dry on your license, and they'll be calling you because there's such a need for foster parents. And that rang true. Our license was signed on July 25th, and the 27th we were discharging a 3-week-old from the hospital.
So when you first decided to take that first step and sign on and go to the training, what was it that made you realize that foster parenting was something that you and your husband were interested in doing?
Just hearing the stories and going to the training and learning about all the different situations that you could be faced with when you meet these children and you meet these families. I feel like someone has to be a champion for these kids, and unfortunately they're removed from all they know, their parents, and at that time you need to be their champion. You need to stick with them and be with them and provide a loving, safe environment with them until they're reunited with their parents, because the goal is always reunification when possible. My husband and I have fostered 7 kids in the little over 2.5 years that we've been doing this. I have great relationships with the children that I've fostered. One little girl was with us for a short period of time, and we were asked at one point to be her godparents. So we see her all the time. I have had 2 little boys that were with us for the longest. They were with us for about a year, and I see them frequently. It's very important when you go to these trainings that you learn about keeping that relationship open with these biological parents, because you have to go into it with an open heart and an open mind. There's going to be different situations that are going to occur, but that's not what your goal is. Your goal is to provide a safe, loving environment for these children until they can go home.
So can you talk to us a little bit about the training? We learned in our last segment that it was for 13 weeks. What types of topics did they cover? What did they prepare you for?
They give actual situations that have occurred with children that have been in care. They talk about trauma. They talk about neglect and abuse and what comes with that, with those children, and what you need to expect when they're in your home, and how it's not about you, it's about what they've experienced and how you can be supportive to them during that time. 9 times out of 10, children, you're angry about something that's happened, but when you stop and think about it, it's their parent, and they're going to love and defend their parent always. So you have to be able to differentiate where you stand with these children and help them and just be supportive in the best way you can.
And is there a foster parent that co-facilitates that training with the DCF staff?
We had 2 trainers. We had a DCF social worker, and we also had a woman who worked out of another therapeutic foster care agency that was there. We also had current foster parents that came in and told their stories about how some children would come in and wouldn't say a thing to them. There was a story that sticks in my head so much about one woman told a story about how this little boy came to her and wouldn't speak, wouldn't say a thing, and every Tuesday they would go to McDonald's to have their visit. So she would get to go to the visit, and the little boy would go and sit with his mom, and they would play and they would talk and speak in a very low tone, and the foster mom would sit over in the corner and read a book. And probably about 4 or 5 visits later, she heard the little boy lean over to his mom and say, "Is it okay for me to like her?" And the mom said, "Absolutely." And after that, the little boy couldn't stop talking. She said, "I couldn't get him to stop talking on the way home," but his fear was disappointing his biological mother. And she said, "She's here to be helpful. So you need to embrace that, because you're always going to have this relationship with me, but she's here to take care of you because I can't right now."
And that child was one of my very first cases.
Oh.
So I know that story very well. And it's, the kids in our care do have such a protection over their birth families. And that's a beautiful story, because it shows the importance of the relationship between the birth family and the foster parent.
Absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Did they prepare you or train you in any way to help you navigate that relationship with the birth family?
It's very important during training. They talk to you about being open to having a relationship with the birth family. Some situations you're going to go into and you might not have that opportunity, but how I go into each placement is when a child is placed in my home, I give it a day or 2, and then I ask the social worker for the number to get in touch with the mother or the father. Sometimes it can be difficult, but then I get the number and I call, because I feel like as a mother, one-on-one, I need to be able to tell this other mother on the other end of the phone, your child is okay. I'm not here to judge you. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to let you know that your baby is safe. And if it makes you feel better every day, if you need me to call you every night, I'll call you. If you want to set up a schedule where we can FaceTime, we'll do that. But it needs to be a smooth transition. That's the only way that it's going to be, the outcome is going to be positive. I have very good relationships with former biological parents to this day.
And that's a wonderful relationship.
It's great.
To nurture that. So talk to us a little bit about the first call. So you're licensed, you're a foster parent, you're licensed, and you are now going to get a call and they're going to ask you if you would be willing to foster this child temporarily. How does that go?
Well, my husband and I have something set up where I will not take the phone calls, because he would come home and there'd be 20 children in my living room. So we have a deal that he receives the phone calls from DCF, and then he'll call me and we discuss it, and then we make a decision together. So our first call, like I said, he called one day and said, "Hi, there's a 3-week-old that needs to be come to our home. Would we be willing to take him or her?" We weren't sure if it was a boy or girl. And then we went to the hospital to meet with the biological mother. And we talked with her, and it was very emotional. I mean, I didn't know her at all, but sitting down and seeing her as a mom, my heart broke for her. But the next day we were able to bring him home, and he stayed with us. And we got to meet up with mom at doctor's appointments and this, that, and the other. And that's also something, when these children are put in your care and you have to go to these appointments, you have to remember that their mom is still their mom and they're still in charge. So you kind of have to be able to back up and let them take over during that period of time when you're at those appointments.
Absolutely. You know, for anybody watching, if you're interested in being a foster or adoptive parent, you can talk to us about the age of the child that you're interested in fostering, any behavioral issues or anything that may make you feel uncomfortable, because we want that match of a foster care placement to be best for everybody involved. So what was the age of the children that you were willing to foster?
At the time when we began fostering, my daughter was 6, and she's an only child. That was another reason we decided to do fostering, because I couldn't have additional children. And she always wanted to be a big sister. So the fact of bringing an older child in would have been a recipe for disaster for her to be an only child and then now be the little child. And so they suggested birth to 5, which we did, and it's been great. I mean, she's like a little mom. When the kids come in, she's great with them. She's wonderful. So we do birth to 5 right now, and it's been good.
So the goal in foster care is reunification whenever possible. How was the reunification for your daughter when the children had to go home? How was that process for her?
It's emotional. It's emotional for all 3 of us. I mean, there's not a dry eye in our home the day that they leave, but we know we've done what we set out to do, and we know that we made a difference in their life, and that's our goal, is to provide a safe, loving environment until they get to go home with mom and dad. So it's bittersweet when they leave. It's sad, but it's bittersweet for us.
Wow. Well, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to talk to Deb now. So Deb, being a foster adoptive parent, as Sarah explained, is an emotional journey. And I know that you're here with us today in your role as a liaison in working with foster parents and adoptive parents within the DCF agency through Connecticut Alliance of Foster and Adoptive Families. But you're also a foster parent too, and I want to definitely acknowledge that and talk to you a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But what is your role as a KFAF liaison?
We provide additional support. Every licensed family has a support worker from the DCF office, and then you have the child's worker as well. That should hopefully be a support. Our role, we work for a nonprofit agency, and so it's very different. It's a little more relational. We don't have maybe the boundaries that a social worker has to set professionally. Because we're living the life also, we can kind of share experiences and have heart-to-hearts. So our support starts right from the inquiry. Kid Hero sends us the information when someone's attending an open house, and then we try to follow up with making sure that the application is being processed and they're attending their training. And once they're licensed, KFAF provides a buddy, which is also a little more one-on-one for the first 6 months. If you're a relative, you're provided that buddy system during the licensing process because the children are already in the home.
Can you talk about what a buddy is? What role
a buddy
they play?
makes phone contact. It's just a little more extra hand-holding. They can listen to some frustrations. They can help be an advocate for the child if you feel like you're not getting the answers that you might want. Sometimes just listening to the story. That's what a buddy looks like.
Okay. So it's a different role than the KFAF liaison has with the family.
Yes and no.
Okay.
We kind of do the same thing, but it's just in the beginning, it's just the extra. Liaisons make themselves available.
I can imagine.
As well.
The more support, the better.
Yes, you definitely need support. I definitely feel that as a liaison, our role is relational. We're often a bridge sometimes between communication between the workers and the foster families, and we can be empathetic. So we're sitting in the office and we understand, the emergency that a social worker is working on a scale of 1 to 10, but yet the foster family thinks that the emergency in their home is also as important. And because we're in the office, we can go up to the workers and say, like, can you just call back, or can you let me know that you heard their phone conversation and you're working on what it is that they need. And so we're kind of the bridge sometimes between the communication.
I see. How long have you been a KFAF liaison?
8 years in June.
8 years. Can you explain to me what your typical day is in the regional DCF office?
So every day is different. We spend some of our time in the office. We spend some of our time on home visits. We spend some of our time soliciting donations for events, conferences, holiday parties. So every day is definitely different. We offer support groups once or twice a month, depending on the needs of each office. So that's, working evenings. We sometimes co-lead trainings. We are constantly looking for community services to be better supports to families. So, yeah.
So you said support group. So what is a support group?
I can speak for Meriden Support Group. We do potluck dinner once a month at a daycare, and we provide childcare for them. DCF often helps with beverages and dessert. We provide training at some of them, but some of them we just get together and chit-chat and build relationships. The children are all together, and it's really beneficial for the kids that are in care too, because they know that they're not the only ones in this situation. Right. We have formed some really strong friendships as a result of support group.
And in your support group, if the foster parent has a birth child, can they bring that birth child
Absolutely.
to the...
Yes, we're treating, it's family. Yeah.
That's great. And you talked about events. Do you plan regional recognition events or retention events for your families?
We do. And so most of it now is regional. When I first started, it was more just for the office. And so now we do have a regional recruiter and a regional retention specialist. So we work alongside with them in whatever they need us to do, whether it's making phone calls to secure venues or taking responses, keeping the RSVP list. So we have good events.
Give me an example of an event that you have.
So one coming up right now will be our Christmas holiday party. We put a lot of work into that. We secure a venue. We have a DJ that comes. We have Santa and elves and gifts that are donated from the community, and it's a good time.
That's wonderful. So in addition to being a liaison, you're also a foster parent.
I am.
How long have you been a foster mom?
9.5 years.
Wow. And you've also adopted, I believe?
We have. Right now we have 7 children in our home. 5 of the 7 are adopted. We've done sibling groups. Has been kind of where we've landed. And it's an interesting road. Day to day is different.
What made you first get involved with fostering?
Well, we've always informally fostered without really realizing what we were doing, my husband and I. And then my son, actually, adult son, called and said that he saw Wednesday's child that needed a home for the summer, and said, I think you and Dad would do good at that. So we called and inquired, and that girl actually had a place to go. So we ended up attending your open house in Cheshire 10 years ago.
I didn't plan that.
No, I know. And afterwards, we actually did bend your ear. I don't know if you remember that either, but we talked quite a while, and we just decided that it was really something that we wanted to do. So we moved forward with getting licensed.
If you had to talk about your most memorable foster care or adoption experience, what can you share with us? It's a pretty heavy question, I'm sure.
It is. So we had raised our children. We started when we were empty nesting, and our youngest was heading to college. During that time, we had a friend call us and ask if we would help with their 15-year-old. So we ended up doing a temporary transfer of guardianship with her. And during that time, she was like, I think you should just get boys. I always wanted brothers. And it's like, okay, we'll do that, and whatever. But then we realized we needed to kind of change it up a little bit just because of the way our house was laid out. And I think one of my favorite memories when we got the call was for our sibling group that is now adopted. And when we went to meet them at the safe home, the sister, who was only 7 at the time, when we left, told her 2 little brothers that they looked like really nice people. And I remember leaving there saying, we're going to make this work, even though it wasn't the ages that we were looking for, or the fact that it was 2 boys and a girl and they were going to have to share a room. We were just going to make it work. And the youngest of that sibling group was really a challenge. And a lot of people questioned us all along the way, are you sure you can do this? Are you sure you can do this? And now we joke about it in the family that he's the golden child.
Oh. How old is he now?
11.
11. Wow.
And they're all golden, but it's just when you can see what some love and consistency and a relationship with their family can do when we all working together for the same common goal.
What about you, Sarah? If you had to think about over the past couple of years and the 7 children that you fostered, is there one or two memorable situations and experiences?
I remember we had a little girl who was about 5 that was with us for a period of time, and she said, are you still going to love me when I go home to my mom? And I said, I'm going to love you forever. And she says, well, I'm always going to remember you because you have the best popsicles. And I said, well, it's the little things that they think of. You know, we as adults look at big things, but she loved the popsicles. So, you know, I mean, that always stays with me. I think of her often.
And you take for granted those
the
small
little things.
Yeah.
And she also said, you have 2 bathrooms in your house? And I said, yeah. And I thought, again, the little things that we take for granted, you know, she just just walked around the house like, I can't believe you live here. And because she's so used to living in a 1-bedroom apartment and sometimes sleeping on the floor. So she had her own bed and her own room, so she just felt like a little princess.
Wow. So in the supports that we offer and the experiences that you have in the training really prepare you for being able to do this work. And it is difficult work, and the reunification process can be difficult. And I think that, you know, Anne Marie, who we had in one of our other shows, talked about, you know, when parents possibly fail, and when they fail, the children need to be adopted by someone else. But with that being said, when you can continue to have a relationship with the family after either an adoption is finalized or after a child is reunified back home is really the best situation for any child. Putting the adults aside, it's what's best for the child. And I think that you've both had experiences in being able to have that done. Is there any one last thing you'd like to share with the viewers about fostering? You know, would you highly recommend that people consider this because there's such a great need?
I would. Like I stated earlier, these kids need champions to just kind of keep them going and remind them that anything is, you know, they can do whatever they want to do. Anything is possible, and you're going to be there to be their cheerleader during that period of time, but that you will not give up on them and that you love them, and the goal is to get them home with mom and dad, and you're going to be right by their side during that time.
And what about you, Deb?
Yes, I can only recommend it. Even at our older age, they keep us young, they keep us happy. It's not always easy, but it's so rewarding. Absolutely. And just to watch the kids thrive and understand like that they have opportunities now that they wouldn't have had, and that you're a part of that opportunity. And
you're really living and breathing the work because you're working all day with this, and then you're living it at home with the children that you're caring for. You're both my heroes, and I'm so grateful to have you on the show with me today.
It's an honor.
Thank you for. So before we end today, I would like to introduce you to a wonderful young man whose name is Sincere, and he's on our Heart Gallery, and he needs a forever home.
Some of the qualities I like in a family are loyalty, respect, honesty, and responsibility. I would like a mom and dad because me growing up, I didn't know my dad, and I still don't. I would like to see how it is to be raised by a dad and a mom. I would like an older brother, someone that I could look up to. I would like to live in a family who has pets. My favorite pet is a dog. I bring in fun, happiness, a lot of different talents that I could teach people, including my family, my mom, my dad. Magic, I can show magic. I play basketball. I know how to play guitar. I like building things, like out of any material I could find that I could build things with it. I like making my own designs, like houses, cars, or anything that I can come up with a design for. I would do chores. I would help clean the kitchen or do anything that needs help around the house or anywhere else.
Is your bed made right?
Yes, my bed is made. I would be a firefighter because I would like to save people's lives. I might do music too, like a studio or something. Don't let life or anyone else bring you down, because struggles will come by, but you can get through those struggles if you just try harder and you believe that you can get through them. Be a leader, not a follower, because if you become a leader, then other people are going to want to be a leader too.